Hey, so I'm going to talk about the revelation of God. I think that if we're going to go back to atheism, I remember early on in science class, I didn't really consider myself to be all that intelligent. I was kind of intimidated. I didn't really do the homework. I had a lot of questions and I had good ideas, but I remember thinking, well, I think my teacher was talking about creation or the beginning. You know, we talked about the Big Bang and some other theories. And I remember at one point just raising my hand and asking a question with no ulterior motive. I just thought, okay, this teacher's really smart. He's going to have a really good answer. Everyone else seems like, you know, they were all honors kids and everything. They seemed like they really were on top of all these arguments and everything. I thought, okay, this is going to be very ABC, rudimentary question with an answer that's pretty obvious. And so basically I started asking, well, where did this come from? Where did this come from? And so finally it got down to the last thing, and I said, but where did that come from? And my teacher just had a blank look and said, nobody knows, you know. This is back in the 80s, and now I think a lot of days people think they know, but like their explanations are just nonsense. And so, I mean, you hear some of what they say as far as how you get something from nothing, which the very basics of science tells you, you can't get something from nothing. That even some of the earlier scientific theories that they had, such as spontaneous generation, were laughed at later on. And once they discovered where things came from, as far as, you know, for example, flies come from little teeny tiny microscopic fly eggs, that it was clear that that you can't get something for nothing. So science came to that conclusion. You can't get something from nothing, and then you get back to trying to explain the origin of the universe. Now they're trying to explain how you can get something for nothing. And it's like the emperor has no clothes. You know, the little kid was the one who saw the truth. I think that intelligence is often highly overrated when it comes to things like this. And just the very most basic question, well, where'd that come from? If that confounds the scientists, then you can't really build some other kind of theory on you know, how life came to be before you answer that very question. So, like, how do you get all this, the universe, the cosmos, the multi-universes, you know, where do you get something for nothing? And there is no good answer for that. But that's not the premise of what I want to talk about here. What I want to talk about is revelation of God. And the way I see it, before Jesus came and gave the revelation of God as a father and us as a heavenly family, you know, further expounded and taught by Paul and then many others, where we see ultimately a heavenly family, where before that it was more like just some powerful force, right? So it was like, God is wrathful, God is angry, God's going to destroy you if you don't obey him. That was the best that a lot of people could do to understand God. And so, for example, for a chicken to ask me, how come you're going to kill me and eat me? Well, I'm a lot more powerful than you. I don't owe an explanation to the chicken. But maybe if my peer asks me, you know, why are you eating all the chickens, then I have to give an answer. So, you know, it was when you read the book of Job, which is the beginning of wisdom, you know, Job is complaining to God, and God finally answers and says, where were you when I created the universe, when I put everything into existence, when I started everything? You know, who are you to question me? It's like, you're the most simplest of form with the most limited type of understanding. You cannot even begin to understand me. And so that was the way that people understood God at that point in time. But then later, it comes to Jesus, where Jesus starts talking about, well, I used to call you servants, but now I call you friends. And the revelation starts to get deeper. And then he reveals God as a father, and us as brothers and sisters, and us as a family, you know, all of which was alluded to before then. But Jesus came and just made it all clear. And so now you could look at it more like, if a mother or a father has a baby, and the baby asks questions like, why mommy, why daddy? You know, initially you have to give very simplistic answers, you know, because it's time to go to bed, or I need you to get healthy and strong. And so you're not going to talk to the kid about how vitamin A and vitamin D works to make strong bones. You just say, you need to drink your milk so you grow big and strong like daddy. And it's like that with God, you know, that when we first start to have a relationship with God, that things have to be explained in very simplistic terms. And then we learn things like patience by times of where there's nothing, you know, and gain endurance on making it through tough things. But, you know, I remember one time when I was in my, I was in my late 30s, and my wife died. And right before that point in time, I had come to this understanding that that everything God does or allows is his best for me. And so I had just come to agree with that. I was like, yeah, that's right. And then we got hit head on by a truck. My wife died in my arms. And that thought was challenged for a minute. It was like, you know, how is this your best for me? But my attitude was, well, you know what, God, I don't get it, but I'm just going to trust you. And I'll hold on to that. And so I just did my best. I held on to that. I didn't blame God. I wasn't complaining about the years that I was not going to have with my wife. What I did instead was I was grateful and thankful for the time I did have with her. And I looked at everything through the eyes of hope. And then eventually, over the course of years, God began to show me how that was his best for me. And then once I accepted that, then God could just start showing me things. And as a man, now I could understand things that I couldn't as a baby or a child. And as long as my attitude was right, then God would show me. And so if you go back to a mother or a teacher with kids, if you have some kids that just have a really crappy attitude, that are going to give you a hard time, you're not going to be as quick to give them an explanation. And you don't owe them an explanation. They just need to behave themselves because they're children and you're the adult. And so, but if as a child you come to your parent humble and you say, okay, mommy, I don't know why I can't have cake before I have dinner, but I'm just gonna be obedient and do what I'm told. You know, maybe they don't actually say that, but that's their attitude. Then mommy wants to explain things better. And it's the same way with God. When we come to him with the right attitude, he starts to show us and explain things. And what I've come to realize is that God is not angry. I mean, there is an aspect of God that is wrath, that's going to bring justice, but God's not angry with us. He's constantly just calling us, and he sees us as his children, where he wants to show us and give us lots of chances and restore us and bring us to a place with friendship and relationship. And so, I mean, ultimately, it comes down to relationship and family. And when we're estranged from God and we have a bad attitude and we're blaming God for stuff that's our fault, or stuff that are consequences of what other people do, then God just goes, okay, I'll wait until you come to me with the right attitude. And then once you do come to God with the right attitude, then bang, everything just opens up and you get revelation. And just to encourage you guys, I've had crazy revelation. I've had visions, I've had near-death experiences, I've had very deep things just explained to me on a spirit level. And that's what's in store for us when we trust God and believe.